Southerners have a knack for being able to insult people, places, and things while wearing a smile on their face, and that includes a particular city in each of their states. In this video, we're taking a look at the worst city in each of the southern states, according to the people who live there. Birmingham, Alabama. Did you know that Birmingham came up with the idea for Veterans Day? They host the oldest and largest Veterans Day celebration in the country. The city has quite a few other things going for it too, but the residents of Alabama love to hate on this place. They mention a few reasons for that. There's the traffic for starters. If you add in the suburbs, you get around 1 million people living around this area, so that's a lot of cars on the road. They blame this on poor infrastructure issues, such as having limited options for north-south traffic. The residents have I-65 and Highway 280, and that's about it. Birmingham has one of the highest accident rates in the country, and residents say that it's due in large part to speeding. Other reasons for why people in Alabama hate Birmingham include things like a poor educational system and health concerns, such as obesity, but the main reason is the crime. Birmingham is seen as being a violent city to state residents. The crime rate in Birmingham is 218% higher than the Alabama average, but 251% above the national average. Violent crimes are even worse. They're 393% higher than the national average. They reported 4,025 violent crimes, of which 88 were murders, and 13,295 property crimes. To break that down, it equals out to the chance of becoming a victim at 1 in 13. Birmingham is about as dangerous a city you can find in the US, yet 200,000 people still live within the city limits. Granted, the population has decreased by 12,000 from the previous census, but I'm surprised it wasn't by a larger margin. Another reason cited for why people don't like Birmingham is the bad job market. The median household income in the US is $64,994, but in Birmingham, it's only $38,832. That makes it a struggle to get ahead, so 24.7% of the residents fall below the poverty line. Jackson, Mississippi. Mississippians are not shy when it comes to telling people about how much they hate the city of Jackson, and that's saying a lot since Mississippi as a whole has so many issues that need to be addressed. There are a few reasons for why Jackson receives so much animosity. Two of the reasons come down to an infrastructure issue due to lack of effective governance. People in Mississippi say that Jackson has the worst roads out of the entire state. They're full of potholes that never seem to get fixed. A study done in 2017 found that the average motorist spends about $2,000 annually on car repairs related to the bad roads. Another study that was done in 2020 found that Jackson has the 10th worst roads in the US, with 36.2% of all major roads in poor condition. There's actually a Twitter page devoted to the Jackson potholes. The other infrastructure problem is the water supply. They have a sewage overflow situation that makes the water undrinkable. The city has estimated that they need about $1 billion to fix the problem, but they only have $459 million earmarked for water improvements. For the water that has been treated and is safe, more than 40% of it never makes it to the customers, according to the Mississippi Department of Health. A city report found that they had 135 sewer collection system failures that affect 127,000 residents and businesses. In the first quarter of 2020, the city saw about 500 million gallons of raw sewage leak into a local river. That's like living in a third world country. Then, as if that isn't enough of a reason to hate the city, the residents say that the crime has gotten out of hand and there's a safety concern. They reported 76 murders in the last FBI report. That's with a population of 153,701, so the chance of becoming a victim is 1 in 19, and Jackson is safer than only 5% of US cities. Forbes ranked Jackson as the second most dangerous city in America for 2022. I can see why the state residents have issues with the city, but to be fair, like with most urban areas, it's not entirely bad. Jackson has quite a few museums and other tourist attractions that are worth visiting at least once. Just don't visit after dark. Turkey Creek, Louisiana. Turkey Creek is a tiny little town. Well, village actually. How tiny depends on which source you use. One says 379 residents, another one says 470. Either way, it's just a blip on the map. Most communities of that size are pretty safe. When everyone knows everyone else, it's kind of hard to get away with a crime. But in Turkey Creek, the crime rate is 24% higher than the Louisiana average and 87% higher than the national average. Violent crimes are worse, at 105% above the national average. Residents of the village say that it's due to a drug problem that has hit the community. One was quoted as saying, "I don't think they have enough room in the jail to fit everyone out here who's on drugs." There's also a lot of poverty in this area. 19% of the population falls below the poverty line. That might be because the median household income is only $39,688. It's hard to make a living in an area where 22.3% of the jobs are in retail, with that being the largest industry. The second and third largest spots go to utilities and construction, but they also have 7.41 times the usual number of people working in farming, fishing, and forestry occupations. Fun fact about Turkey Creek, it has the youngest mayor in Louisiana history. Philip Cavins was sworn into office at the age of 23. Dallas, Texas. Texas has several bigger cities, so the likelihood of one of them being considered the worst for the state was pretty high. But to Texans, Dallas isn't Texas. They say that people from this city are shallow and superficial, as in not authentic Texans. I wonder how much of that is due to the TV show Dallas. Do people from the rest of the state think all of Dallas's residents are like the Ewings? I don't know, you tell me. There's also a sports rivalry. People who are into sports have a tendency to be very passionate about their teams, so that's part of why Dallas gets so much hate. Then there's the traffic. Survey respondents mentioned that many of the roadways charge tolls, and there are just too many vehicles in the area. I've driven through Dallas, so I can attest that it's pretty bad. Not quite Chicago bad, but it's still taking a risk with your life kind of traffic. It really makes one reconsider that whole wide open spaces vibe that they promote for the state. Lastly, just like with the other places on this list, Dallas has a crime problem. They reported 11,514 violent crimes, including 236 murders, and 46,974 property crimes. So keep a close eye on anything of value. The chance of becoming a victim is 1 in 24, and Dallas is safer than only 5% of US cities. However, Dallas isn't the most dangerous place in Texas. I know Texans don't want to hear it, but Houston has worse crime. Ardmore, Oklahoma. Oklahomans have two things to say about Ardmore. It's boring and there's too much crime. Ardmore has a population of 24,725, so it makes sense that it would be boring. Smaller cities don't usually have much in the way of entertainment. One resident said that they have a Whataburger, and that's the highlight of the city. As for crime, Oklahoma's residents aren't wrong. Ardmore has more than its fair share. Money Inc. says that Ardmore is the 9th most dangerous city in the state, and they rank the city as the 12th worst place to live in Oklahoma. Ardmore's crime rate is 71% above the Oklahoma average. That's saying something, since the state isn't exactly known for being a safe place to live. The crime rate is also 131% above the national average. They reported 215 violent crimes and 1,123 property crimes, so the chance of becoming a victim is 1 in 19, and Ardmore is safer than only 3% of US cities. Residents say that the crime is so bad because it's halfway between Oklahoma City and Dallas. There's also a high poverty rate in the city at 20.5% due to the median household income being only $45,602. Pine Bluff, Arkansas. People typically don't care for places where there's a high probability of being attacked, so most of Arkansas's residents think Pine Bluff is the worst city. Of course, they're not the only ones. A publication called Neighborhood Scout ranks the city as the 7th most dangerous place in the entire country. The stats are eye-popping. Their overall crime rate is 105% higher than the Arkansas average, and 186% higher than the national average, but where it really gets crazy is the violent crime rate. That's 372% higher than the national average. Pine Bluff isn't exactly a major metropolitan area. They only have 41,253 residents as of the last census, but they reported 23 murders in addition to 723 other violent crimes and 1,990 property crimes. There is a 1 in 15 chance of becoming a victim, and Pine Bluff is safer than 1% of US cities. Sadly, the crime is only increasing. It went up by 18% from the previous year. With most cities, people will say, well, this one part of town is okay, but you can't say that about Pine Bluff. The crime is everywhere. That's probably why they have 2.9 times the usual number of people working in law enforcement. And like most of the other places that have a lot of crime, Pine Bluff suffers from a poverty issue. It's 25.4%. Compare that to the US rate of 11.4% or even Arkansas's rate of 15.2%. Memphis, Tennessee. There was a study done in 2017 that listed Memphis as being the 4th most segregated city in the US, and I think that speaks volumes for what this city is like. One person said this about Memphis: though geographically and legally Memphis is in Tennessee, Memphis is culturally and essentially a part of the North Mississippi Delta. The rest of Tennessee is an entirely different culture than Memphis. It's certainly a different economic climate. In Tennessee, the median household income is $54,833, and the poverty rate is 13.6%, which isn't great, but Memphis is even worse, at $41,864 for the median household income, and a poverty rate of 24.6%. Memphis has a population of 633,000, so that's a ton of people living below the poverty line. It's hard to get a decent job without an education, and according to Tennessee residents, Memphis has a bad school system. It seems to be supported by the stats, as only 86.5% of the adults have earned a high school diploma. Then there's the overwhelming crime issue. The overall crime rate is 237% above the national average, but the violent crime rate is an astounding 506%. They reported 289 murders, more than 15,000 other violent crimes, and 36,197 property crimes. And the crime doesn't stay on the city streets. Last year, there were at least 95 reported shootings on the interstates, so it isn't even safe to drive through Memphis to get somewhere else. The chance of becoming a victim is 1 in 13. Memphis is safer than 1% of US cities. That's just insane. Lexington, Kentucky. A complaint that is heard frequently about Lexington is a lack of decent jobs. The three largest industries for this city are healthcare, educational services, and retail. Many residents say that the good jobs are taken by what they refer to as the good old boy network of Lexington. They say that if you aren't part of that group, there just aren't many jobs from which to choose. Maybe that's why 15.8% of the residents fall below the poverty line. The median household income is only $58,954, so a lot of people in this city are having a tough go of it. People in Kentucky also say that for a city, Lexington doesn't have any attractions. They call it boring. The other complaint is the crime. It's not as bad as the other places on this list. It isn't even as bad as some other cities in Kentucky, but it's more crime than the residents would like. They reported 297 violent crimes, including 8 murders, and 2,998 property crimes. That puts the crime rate at 40% higher than the national average, so the chance of becoming a victim is 1 in 31. So what do you guys think? Did the residents of these states pick the right cities as their worst? Let me know in the comments. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and maybe share it on social media. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I remain stuck in the cornfield.